There is a major political storm brewing in the Faroe Islands right now, and it all boils down to one single question. Is Denmark's intelligence service, PET, a helpful ally, or is it a Trojan horse that threatens the island's own sovereignty? This whole debate is really exposing some deep, deep fractures over national identity and security.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get into the political storm itself. Then, we'll look at the two totally opposite worldviews at the center of the debate. And finally, we'll see a direct rebuttal from one of the main figures involved. So what kicked this whole thing off? Well, it was a decision to expand the presence of PET, that's the Danish intelligence service, in the Faroes. What might look like a simple security upgrade on paper, well, it spiraled into a massive debate about the very future of the nation. And this really gets to the heart of it all. Is Denmark's intelligence agency a helpful partner, in a world that's getting more and more dangerous? Or is it some kind of holdover from a colonial past, threatening Faroese sovereignty? That one question is literally splitting the political scene right down the middle. You can basically see this whole fight play out between two key politicians. On one side, you've got Erling Idisgard, who's really leading the charge against Pete. And on the other, there's Sjúrður Skaale, a Faroese MP in the Danish parliament, who, well, he sees things completely differently. And when I say their worldviews are different, I mean they are polar opposites. Idisgard believes the biggest threat is internal. He sees Denmark using PET to undermine Faroese independence for its own gain. But for Skaale, the threat is clearly external. He's looking at Russian aggression in the North Atlantic and saying, hey, we absolutely cannot afford to ignore this. Idisgard really doesn't pull any punches here. He says the idea that Pat is there to actually help the Faroe Islands is, and I'm quoting him, completely insane. In his mind, relying on a foreign intelligence service isn't just a risk, it's a direct threat to the country itself. And Skaale hits back just as hard. He calls all these concerns a serious case of political paranoia. He's basically saying that all this fear about Denmark's intentions is just irrational and completely disconnected from the real dangers out there. Now, to back up his argument, Skaale points to what he sees as a very clear pattern of Russian activity in the region. He's talking about things like military gear found on Russian ships, vessels hanging around NATO exercises, and something really concrete, an undersea cable that was cut by a Russian ship back in 2022. And this is where the debate got, really personal. Skaale didn't just talk about ideas. He went public and claimed this anti-Danish paranoia was a widespread problem. And then he started naming names. He actually accused a former prime minister, a minister, and a top diplomat of all sharing this view. So, after being called out so publicly, Erling Idisgard decided he wasn't going to let that stand. He fired back with his own opinion piece, responding directly and very forcefully to everything Skaale had said. Right out of the gate, Idisgard accuses Skaale of just putting words in his mouth, of making things up. Then he lands this incredibly sharp and personal jab. He compares Skaale to Sophus, who is a paranoid character from a play that Skaale himself actually wrote. The character twists reality to fit his own narrative. Ouch. Then he does something really interesting. He clarifies his position using two specific Faroese words. He says he doesn't see Denmark as figindar, which means enemies. He sees them as motpartar, or counterparts. Two sides that have different interests for sure, but who can still deal with each other with respect. And this, right here, is the absolute core of Idisgard's argument. Intelligence services, he says, are political tools, and they always serve their owner. So from his perspective, it's just absurd to celebrate Danish spying in the Faroes, because at the end of the day, PET's loyalty will be to Denmark, not to them. He's not done with the biting analogies either. He calls Skaale a professional Santa Claus for the Danes. The implication is pretty clear. Skaale might be delivering what look like gifts from Denmark, but those gifts always come with strings attached, strings that serve Danish interests. Idisgard saves his final line as a direct shot, aimed right at Skaale. He writes, PET does not serve the Faroe Islands. PET serves the Danish unitary state. Just like you. It's a really powerful end to a debate that has just laid bare this fundamental split in Faroese politics, and the stakes for the nation's future couldn't be higher. Like and subscribe to PAL's Fundamentals for more content like this. Sources linked below.